All right, now it's time to look at VAT. Now, what comes as a huge relief to developers and buyers in Haryana is that a recent notification has fixed value-added tax at 1% or just a tad above that 1.05% for all real estate projects. Will it really bring relief? Now, let's tell you why there was confusion. Developers were using vaguely worded tax department notification from 2013 to levy as much as 5% VAT on home buyers because their premise is very simple. If we don't collect it now and we actually give possession of the flat, it's not going to be possible to get anything out of the buyer. The buyer on the other side was saying, why are we being charged so much when there's no clarity on that issue? Okay, so today we have Ankit Gulgulia. He's a chartered accountant and we also have with us Rohit Raj Modi, Director Haryana Homes Private Limited, to tell us whether now there is enough clarity for both buyers and sellers to move ahead. Rohit, what's going on? I mean, I hear that even now things are not as crystal clear as they should have been.
Manisha, I think things are much in a clearer space as compared to where things used to stand earlier.
Okay.
The VAT notification under the composition scheme is at that 1.05%, as you have mentioned, and any developer registered under that will have to deposit that 1% of the sale value to the department. And a developer under that scheme cannot collect that from the buyer.
Okay.
So it's not a direct additional cost to the buyer. A developer may increase their price by that much to recover, but there is no confusion to my mind.
All
there
right,
was
so,
a 2013
Rohit, say that again. So you're saying that in cases where okay, so let's start with where buyers refused to pay and they said, look, we need more clarity. You're saying that the developer cannot ask the buyer for that money.
If the developer is registered under composition, you have to understand there are two methods of VAT calculation. One is a composition option, another is an assessment option. And it's the developer's choice to be under either of the options. If the developer is under the composition option, then in the composition option in Haryana, you cannot charge that amount to the buyer of the property.
But you can if you don't register for it?
Yeah, if the developer is under the assessment option, which is perfectly legal and valid and is correct, if he's in an assessment option, then as per the assessment, he can levy the VAT on the buyer, where the figure would actually get ascertained only on the basis of a pretty lengthy calculation, which can happen from time to time only, and it will always be a moving figure till the closure of the project.
Wow. In cases where the money has been collected for buyers and has been kept as security deposit by the developer, he really needs to return it, doesn't he?
No, now this pertains to some of the older, pertaining to the years from 2009 up to 2014 actually. Yeah. Whatever has been collected pertaining to those years by the developer.
Yes. And that's where the dispute is. Okay, Rohit, thanks so much for joining us. We've got Ankit in the studio with us. Ankit, Rohit, of course, told us the developer perspective, but what's really going on? I thought there's still confusion, isn't it? I mean, they've not, first of all, said what is the starting day for this amnesty at 1.05%? Who will pay that, right? So what is the starting date? Is it 2009 or is it before that? The second thing they haven't really said is what happens to the money which has already been collected by the developers and even paid to the government.
So, Manisha, before we actually get into this, first of all, I see this amnesty as one very positive thing that the government...
It is positive, of course.
Something the government has implemented. But now, it's not just about the positivity or analyzing the impact. It's first about what are the nitty-gritties of the scheme. Now, there are few issues that are still existing in the scheme. The first issue is that, yes, the opening period is not provided in the scheme.
Right.
Now, once the opening period is not provided, you don't say that there is some sort of a dilemma straight away. If you don't have anything in the act itself, only then that case there will be some dilemma. My personal view is that all those assessments which are pending at the current moment right now, or whatever are the limitation periods under the HVAT, will be the classification criteria. Now, you see, the assessment year is 10-11, which is basically under the limitation year right now, according to the latest limitation rules, which can be assessed by the authorities, unless the periods which are prior to that have been opened specifically by the Haryana authorities. Number one. Number second is that as far as the collectibility of the VAT is concerned, The collectability of VAT in our case, in our view, is something different from what we have heard till now. See, composition scheme was implemented for the period which was 1st April 2014 and onwards.
Onwards, right.
So we are not talking about that composition scheme
That's
right
what.
now,
So Rohit
right?
meant like,
so
okay,
we are
that's
talking
why
about
he went back. We are talking about the
current amnesty scheme.
Yes,
the
absolutely.
current amnesty scheme does not debars collection as such. You go through the notification.
So they can, developers can still collect it from the buyers at 1.05%.
In our view, unless and until you debar the notification clearly mentioning that the buyers cannot collect, the sellers cannot collect it from the buyers, it has to be the indirect tax principle for us.
Okay.
So
next, what happens to the money already collected?
See, money already collected, there are two views in this. But I have a very clear view as to this. See, there are two issues in this. One is you collect the money in the form of a surety, right? You get the bank deposits and then you get a lien on that.
Right, like
now,
an
that is
escrow.
not a collection as such. That is not getting as a collection. So in that case, the developer will discharge 1.05% and will refund the money off.
Okay, got it.
There are few developers who have opted for Rule 49 prior to the period 31st March. In that case, if they have collected the amount on the account of the VAT and they've charged it, in that case, absolutely there is no refund allowed.
And how much is that? They've also charged at what percentage?
They have charged it around 4.2% at that time.
And that money is gone to the government?
Right. Absolutely. If they have deposited it, even if they have not deposited it, it would have been charged and collected, so they would have to pay that amount.
All right. Before you go, just quickly tell us what we still need to hear from the government.
See, for the government, I would specifically require one clarification. Rest, all of them look smooth. One clarification that I need is, that the industry would need actually is, what sort of valuations are we looking at? See, government is using the term is accounting standards and the revenue recognized as the fundamental basis for valuation. Now, revenue recognized is an open game altogether. A lot of us developers, what would happen is that they would collect some amount in the initial years and they would get revenue as per the ICAI standards at a later year.
Of course.
So, in those years, are you going to tax that amount which is only received and not consider that which is going to come in later years? Ultimately, Manisha, the point is very simple. If you have a 600 crore project, don't tax more than 600 crores in the complete block. Right. So if it's a culmination of 7 years, if you're going to tax somewhere around 700, 800 crores, then that is going to constitute as a double taxation. So my view is the government should all done perfectly. Government should come out with an explanation to smoothen the trade that we are not going to tax you more than the amount that your estimated revenue or a complete revenue is going to generate out of this project.
Absolutely.
Right.
You can't get overcharged.
You will not be able to recover the buyer's complete amount. You're not going to tell the buyers that, okay, we were taxed at 800 crores.
Absolutely.
So that is something what we need to expect.
Need to hear. Ankit, thank you so much. You've really explained it well, and it's such a pleasure to have you. So, some amount of confusion over VAT in Haryana has got over, but some more answers needed from the government. Overall, a very positive move.